I would suggest to you that being the heaviest person on this stage, I'm the best one to throw out at that point. So I've got a few minutes to do a bit of scene setting around cloud security. Bruce, if you can leave your magic with the finger thing, thank you very much. What we can see up there behind me is a number of things that we think will happen with cloud. Very interesting presentation from John McHugh, which I thought was really good about setting the scene, practical scene about cloud adoption. So I want to give you a couple of observations as to why this thing with security in cloud and mobile actually is going to be a little important. So I want to draw your attention to the top left, which I hope it's the top left as I think about these things. By about 2014, we think 80% of all software is going to come out of the cloud. So the content, the purchasing and the commercial model for software will be pretty much in the cloud. We'll still have some stuff sitting out there, but it's all going to be cloud driven. Another little thing up there, your bottom left. 2014, look at that, 7 billion connected devices, of which 2 billion are going to PCs. This is another 5 billion things sitting out there talking to things and pulling data and creating content. Absolute massive amount of content that John mentioned this morning. So we have that little issue out there. We have a number of other areas. I'm not going to take you through all of those stats, but I think there are a couple which are important. This one. The amount of data that we create has to sit somewhere. We have to be compliant with where it sits. So to give you an example from that survey research that we used, of all of that data, approximately 80% of that content is created by individuals, not businesses. So all those trillions and trillions of bits of data, most of it is created by me sending text messages of personal creation. Yet it's going to hit our networks or it will hit our business devices and we will be legally responsible for stuff. So 80% of that content will be not created by businesses but by consumers. But the majority of it, due to data legislation, compliance, regulation, means we will be responsible for stuff that we didn't create, didn't post, but it's hit our network at some point. So it's a big issue. Cloud is a major issue. Bruce, bingo. Thank you. So, we've got a lot of data being created, a lot of devices sitting out there through which we access it, the endpoints, smartphones, tablets around the audience. They're going to be increasingly consuming data and applications as well. And then we have these things. These are our predictions for cloud this year. I'm not going to do most of them. I want to draw your attention to a couple. It is going to become part of the mainstream. Not the mainstream, part. The other thing is that we're going to see SLAs emerge around the cloud provision. So I'll give you two examples. There's a well-known airline in Australia, runs a Virgin Blue, who had a massive failure in its booking and billing systems, Navitaire. Navitaire was a hosted, cloud-based billing solution. It went down, it caused untold amounts of pain for Virgin and its customers. This is a horizontal business application in the cloud that collapsed, and it's a core business application for Virgin, and they had to process their millions of customers over several weeks manually. Very, very expensive. There needs to be SLAs around the performance of things in the cloud. The other thing is the SLAs around the data location. It came up a little bit this morning as a question for John about the importance of where is the data located. Because in some ways you may not be sure of where that sits in the cloud. I think we'll start to see SLAs around where is my data located. And I think that's going to cause a problem. You see some vendors now building out data centers in the country to specifically meet the enterprise concern around where's my data. So HP is doing it in Australia, actually in New Zealand, but they are building data centers out around the region to specifically locate in country to provide in part cloud services. So you have those sort of things coming through as well. I'm going to move off that, apart from saying that I want to talk a little bit more about an example which I thought was highly topical. Bruce, if you could just bring up that next slide, please. This should be a screenshot from that epitome of professional journalism, News Limited, run by Murdoch. But there was an article that came out last Sunday, very topical in the Sunday papers, about federal government. The Australian federal government is going to crack down on cloud data security. Bruce, 2 taps on the finger, please. And here's the terminology which I love. Fears. Oh, that's a bit dangerous. But then you've got crackdown, and the bit which, it's concerning, and then one more tap. This is the bit that makes organisations go, legal. Bring it up. You've ruined the whole build to that now. Can we hit the tap button again? Yeah. I'm building to that so well. Okay. Potentially fraught legal environment. So a CIO that didn't read that and run through their cloud contracts at that point in time. Potentially fraught, yeah, it is potentially fraught, because there's all these things now around cloud. So we have mobile devices. Organisations now are looking at an iPhone, iPad, Google Docs architecture. Their data sits in the cloud. There's organisations in Australia and Asia doing this. How do I ensure my data is encrypted? How do I ensure my access to those business processes and those applications is compliant? There are all these attributes sitting out there now. You go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So this is this company, Acme, that we came up with. Frightfully creative name. When you think about these things, I'm a 1,000-seat organisation. I'll take IDC. We're globally dispersed. We have our own internal systems. We have a highly mobile analyst workforce. We have CRM and ERP systems in place. And here's the problem. I think it's an interesting guide that this chap, Tainter, came up with several decades ago now. He's an archaeologist. So what's an archaeologist got to do with cloud? He actually put forward a theory that says organisations and countries collapse because of a couple of reasons. The first is the complexity. Complexity adds bureaucracy. Bureaucracy then stifles the ability to compete and respond. I think this is an interesting observation about cloud. Cloud is there in some minds of CEOs and CFOs to decouple the technology from the business. I'm going to take all that stuff that's a real nuisance to me and put it over there. And somebody else can do it. So we're now seeing organisations look to cloud to decouple the technology out of the business to drive business efficiency. Now that's a problem, because now I've got a third-party service provider running my business processes, taking my data, my applications, storing it part hybrid, so part in the cloud, part on-premise, multiple access points. I'm uncertain as to what data is stored where. I'll give you a practical example. There's a very large global consulting firm. They had approximately about 90,000 employees. And they built effectively a social media portal on the Jive platform, which is a social media tool. And they had that sitting outside their organisation for a 6-month trial. During the course of that trial, so this is a cloud-based platform, during the course of that trial, approximately 60,000 of the 90,000 employees joined the portal. About 45,000, so half their employees, were active users. Now what happened? This thing is now still outside the organisation. It's still a cloud service sitting over there. Several things happened. Their email traffic dropped by about 80% because all their traffic was going through an external portal. What do we use email for? Email we use for attaching documents. Email originally was there to attach a document. So all the data and all their files and all the documents that they were keeping on an internal corporate system suddenly went in the cloud. And they were mobile. So half of their employees are now sending data through an external third-party cloud services provision. This is a consulting company that needs to be very heavily compliant. And it's sitting outside the organisation. They're in the process of bringing it inside the organisation. But Massive drop in traffic internally, data now flying around in the cloud, no storage, no backup, no compliance, no access in terms of access governance. Mobile, how do I restrict the fact that I'm sitting here and I've pulled up my tablet and I've emailed to my Yahoo account half my corporate data and they'll leave the company tomorrow? No control. This is why security in the cloud is absolutely, absolutely critical.